Standard 4. Get a little cameo from me on this problem here. Mr. Barbera reaches into a bag filled with 34 muffins. There are 20 chocolate muffins and 10 blueberry muffins, and the rest are poppy seed muffins. What is the probability Mr. Goldman will grab a poppy seed or blueberry muffin? That's pretty funny. We changed names halfway through it. I believe this is supposed to be the same teacher. Let's go ahead and we'll get rid of me. We'll make it all Mr. Goldman. So Mr. Goldman reaches into that bag. So there's 34 muffins total, 20 chocolate, 10 blueberry, and we want to know the probability of poppy seed or blueberry. So the first part here is you got to figure out how many muffins in there are poppy seed. So if I have 20 chocolate, 10 blueberry, that's 30 of the muffins, but there's 34. 34 minus the 30 means that I have 4 poppy seed. So now I know that I have 4 poppy seed and I have 10 blueberry. So if I want the probability of getting one or the other, I can actually take the probabilities separately and add them together. So poppy seed is 4 out of 34. Blueberry is 10 out of 34. When I add fractions, I leave my denominator. Do not add that denominator. That's just the size of the piece. My numerators add up to 14. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to reduce that one up here. So these are both divisible by, the only thing I see right off the bat is 2. And that would give me 7 over, what is half of 34? It would be 17. Yeah, I did a little math in my head there. And that's going to be the simplified version. So I'm going to go ahead and put 7 over 17. And I'm going to box it just to make sure my teacher can see it clearly. And that is all we have there for standard 4. All right, standard 5, little review standard. We're going to do area and perimeter. I'm going to start off by talking about perimeter. So we're talking about perimeter here. Perimeter is the distance along the outside of a shape or outside of a polygon. And the trick here is just to make sure that we're only adding the sides on the outside and not these lines inside, like the height here of the triangle or the height here of the trapezoid. So for the perimeter of this rectangle, I know that the opposite sides are equal. And I'm just going to add them all up. 9 plus 4 plus 9 plus 4. I know 9 plus 4 is 13. And notice I come down a line each time and I write out the whole thing so that someone who's reading my work can see my progress. 13 plus 13 is 26. And I remember my units. Since we're measuring perimeter, it's just a linear distance, so we just leave the unit as is. For my triangle here, I'm going to go around the outside. We're not going to include this 8. That's the height. So I'm going to add 10 plus 17. And in this case, we actually broke up these two parts into two numbers here for you. We're looking for the larger triangle, but this distance would be 6 plus 5. So this whole distance right here is actually 21. So we're going to add 21. 10 plus 17 is 27. I write out my whole line. 27 plus 21 is 48. And again, I bring down my units. In this case, there's no units. So if there's not units, I'm just going to write the word units to show that I know that it's linear units and not something like units squared or units cubed. One more perimeter here. Again, we're going to leave out the 11. That's the height. So I'm just going to add them all up around the outside. 12 plus 13 plus 14 plus 18. Well, 12 plus 13 is going to be 25. And 14 plus 18 is 32. You might be saying, well, Mr. Rivera, why aren't you adding left to right the whole time? Well, because it's all addition, it's okay for me to add out of order. The commutative property says that we can add in any order we want. 25 plus 32 is going to be 55, and my units are millimeters. Well, I should have been boxing all of these, so let's go back and retroactively do that. All right, time to find some areas. To be able to do areas, we're going to need formulas, so we need to remember these formulas. The area of a rectangle is going to be length times width, sometimes also shown as base times height. A triangle will be base times height divided by 2, because that triangle is half of a polygon with a base and height of the same distances as the triangle. And your trapezoid is a little more complicated. You're going to need both bases here. So the top and the bottom base. It's going to be base 1 plus base 2. Then we're going to multiply by the height here, which is the 11 on the inside. And at the end, you divide that whole thing by 2. Again, you might remember from 6th grade, this trapezoid is actually half of a polygon if you double it and flip it. You can find some cool videos online for that if you're not so sure. If you're having a hard time remembering these, remember I gave you a printout with these formulas. Otherwise, you could write them down right now to help you remember. These are good. These are 3 that you should know. If anything, this one might be a little tougher, but if you spend a little time trying to remember it, I think you'll be okay. So let's bring it down. The area here of this rectangle, we said it would be length times width. So this would be 9 times 4. I come down a line, I say that's 36. And my units here, because I'm talking about area, are centimeters squared. We're talking about how many square centimeters could fit inside of that shape. My triangle here, we said it's base times height divided by 2. My base is actually this 21, and I know that because the height is coming straight up from that base. Make sure you don't get tricked if we break it up into parts like this. It's the whole base. So 21 times a height of 8 and divided by 2. Now I'll actually show you a little trick here. 21 times 8 is not something that I really want to do. So I can actually divide the 2 into one of these. So I'm going to actually go 8 divided by 2 is 4. And then 21 times 4 is actually 84. I made a mistake before, so sorry for that little cut there. I get 84. Just to show you that I would get it another way, I will use my calculator, and if I wanted to multiply the 21 times the 8 first, that'd be 168, and then divide that by 2, and I get 84. So 84, and my units, again, we're just going to use the word units, but they are square units. Box that, box this. Finally, the trapezoid. I said we're going to need both bases. That's the 2 parallel sides. So in this case, the 12 and the 18. So 12 plus 18 times the height of 11. And then, because that's the number, or that's the line going straight up from base to base. And we're going to divide the whole thing by 2. So 12 plus 18 is going to give me 30 times 11 over 2. Again, I'm going to go ahead and divide this because it's a little easier for me. So 30 divided by 2 is 15 times 11. And I ran out of space here, but 15 times 11, because I don't have space, I would do this on my paper if I were working on my own test. But for the purpose of the video, I will just show you that 15 times 11 comes out to 165. And my units there would be millimeters squared, because we're talking about area. Now the bottom here, this is not a part that's part of a standard, but we do like to ask this question. If you have a mistake or a misconception that someone in class or you had during this chapter, we don't have to name anybody by name, describe that mistake or misconception and how you fixed it. Sometimes it helps for us to reflect on misconceptions, things that we understood differently, and that helps us understand them better in the future. Well, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully this helped. Make sure you study for your check-in and ask your teacher if you have any questions. Thanks, bye.